When it comes to movies, people often focus on the visual effects, but the sound effects are often just as crucial when it comes to movie making. The art of sound effects stems back to 1927, when Universal employee Jack Foley projected the movie Showboat onto a screen and recorded the footsteps, the movements, and the props all in one track, walking with a cane to create the footsteps of three people. Since then, creating sounds for movies has become even more creative and sometimes even bizarre. So, we thought we'd take a look at the surprising ways iconic movie sound effects were made. One of the most impressive elements of Denis Villeneuve's Dune is the way the filmmaker brought the vehicles and technology in Frank Herbert's book to life, with the aircraft being based on the look of a dragonfly. But how did they create the sound exactly? Well, it turns out that it was something of a crazy recipe, according to Villeneuve himself. Because the design of the ornithopter is based on a dragonfly, the sound team first recorded the sounds of beetle wings, even having a particular beetle shipped over from Poland specifically for the sound, bringing it into the studio so they could record the wings flapping. They then spliced that sound with the noise of a cat purring, with a microphone placed close to a cat to pick up the noise to get a fluttering sound. Then, they layered it with the sound of a canvas strap from a tent strung in a 140-mile-per-hour storm so that you could hear the rapid flapping of a very organic piece of material. Finally, they recorded car engine noises as well as bees buzzing and beehives, all in all creating a powerful but not distracting noise that Villeneuve was extremely proud of. Now, while we may have bones and fossils to give us an idea of what the dinosaurs looked like, because they died millions of years ago, we have no idea what they sounded like. So the Jurassic Park team had to come up with some ingenious methods to create the sounds of these prehistoric creatures. The T-Rex's roar is a mix of 6 different animals, including lions, tigers, alligators, elephants, a whale, and most surprisingly, a koala. While the noise of Martin Ferrero getting eaten is actually the sound of a horse munching on some corn. The sound of the velociraptor hatching is actually the noise of an ice cream cone wafer being crumbled in front of a mic, while the sound of the dinosaur actually emerging was the sound of a sound artist squashing melons while wearing rubber gloves covered in liquid soap. But the root sound behind that of the velociraptors themselves is actually the most disturbing. While some of the raptor noises came from horses breathing and annoyed geese, the sound from the raptors' bark at each other to communicate in the kitchen was actually the noise of a pair of tortoises doing the dirty, if you know what I mean. Bet you won't be able to watch that scene the same way ever again. Now, to create the unique sounds of Star Wars, a number of different items were used. The sound of the blaster was actually that of the sound team beating a cable with a hammer. The iconic lightsaber humming comes from microphone feedback from a tube TV mixed with 2 simplex projector motors harmonizing with each other. The Wookiee language is a mix of walruses and other animals. The sound of a TIE fighter passing by is the altered sound of an elephant screeching. The ATT walking was actually a machinist's punch press. The battle droids in Revenge of the Sith is actually the noise of an old seed dispenser used on a farm, while R2-D2 is a mix of whistles, water pipes, and sound designer Ben Burtt's own voice. Now, this next one is actually a sound effect that has been used in multiple movies to provide an ominous score, including The Matrix, Alien, and Poltergeist. And while you may not have heard the name of the instrument, you would likely have heard the sound. We're talking about the waterphone. Like the theremin, the waterphone is often used to make an unsettling noise, with the instrument consisting of a stainless steel pan surrounded by metal rods of various lengths that can be drummed or bowed like a string instrument. To actually make a sound, water must be poured into the basin portion, hence the name waterphone. Depending on the amount of water you put in, the pitch will change. And as well as being used to make ominous sounds, it has also been used to replicate whale calls. Arguably the most inventive sound team on this list were the ones who worked on Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings series, with them using a number of out-of-the-box ideas to come up with their signature sounds. For the Balrog's voice, the noise of a cinder block scraping along a wooden floor manipulated to various speeds was used, as well as the noises of both horses and donkeys. Scraping plastic cups were used to create the ring wraith scream. A majority of Shelob's voice was a plastic toy alien head filled with liquid. The voices of the orcs of Moria were vocal baby elephant seals, while the Uruk-hai voices also derived from aquatic animals, with the noise coming from the mix of sea lions with tigers and leopards mixed in. However, the sound of the army as they attacked Helm's Deep was actually the sound of 25,000 New Zealand cricket fans who Jackson conducted during halftime. Moving into the Terminator series now, the crushed skull sound effect in T2 was actually the noise of a pistachio nut being grounded into a metal plate. The sound of bullets hitting the T-1000 is actually the sound of an empty glass being dropped into a bucket of yogurt, while the sound of him morphing around the prison bars is the sound of dog food being slowly sucked out of cans. However, the most surprising sound comes during the liquid metal morphing, which was created by putting a condom over a microphone and dipping it into a mix of water, flour, and dust-off furniture cleaner, with soundman Gary Rydstrom saying it would make these huge goopy bubbles, which is an unpleasant visual. Keeping on with sci-fi movies now, the sounds behind the Predators movement was also a surprising mix, with 4 tracks being blended into one. The first one was a wet chamois, or a chamois for our non-American viewers. The second was rubbing hand lotion on a person's hands. The third was a wet leather handbag. And the fourth was some mouth noises performed by actor Peter Cullen. The clicking sounds the Predator made was actually inspired by a dying, upside-down crab that Cullen once saw, with the clicks and gurgles staying in his mind. Now, I can guarantee everyone watching this video will be familiar with the Wilhelm Scream, even if you haven't heard the name. The sound effect of a man screaming has been used in over 360 movies, including Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and a number of Tarantino flicks. While it hasn't been verified where the origin of the scream comes from, many attribute it to actor and musician Sheb Wooley. While Godzilla's roar may be pretty intimidating, the actual noise behind the sound effect is a lot less so. For his ominous bellow, the Gojira team ended up rubbing the strings of a double bass with a leather glove coated in pine tar resin. However, the sound effect behind Godzilla's roar since 2014 has been kept somewhat of a mystery. While melons were used to create the sound effect of baby velociraptors emerging, the fruit has also been used for another classic sound effect. The stabbing sound effect during the infamous shower scene in the movie Psycho was created by director Alfred Hitchcock repeatedly stabbing some melons. Look, the moral of the story is that melon is a versatile fruit. While the sound effect behind the boulder rolling in Raiders of the Lost Ark wasn't actually that of a boulder, it was indeed the sound of a very heavy object moving. The sound was that of a car without a motor and a heavy lawn roller being rolled down a hill, with the sounds then recorded. For the famous sound of Wolverine's claws being wielded, unsurprisingly, the sound of a metal blade was used. But to actually get the sound of the blades being passed through flesh was something different. That sound can actually be attributed to the noise of chicken and turkey carcasses being ripped apart and nuts being cracked, with the sounds being combined. While on the subject of the X-Men though, Nightcrawler's teleportation noise in X2 was created by combining the sounds of sucking dog food from a can, camera flash bulbs, and the release of compressed air. And, although he's not part of the X-Men, the sound of Spider-Man's organic web shooting in Sam Raimi's movies was a mix of fishing lines being strung from 2 posts and strummed with that of shaving foam. And finally, ever wonder what makes up the sound for when E.T. moves? Well, apparently, according to sound artist Joan Rowe, it's a mix of packaged liver in a flat container, jelly in a wet towel, and popcorn in a bag. The more you know.